Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Thursday morning. We've got some college football for you this morning, some Jazz basketball to get you started this morning. We're going to start with a conversation PK and I had with Steve Bartle, our Ute insider here on The Zone. When we talked to him on Monday, we were 2.5 weeks away from the season opener. We are now officially 2 weeks away from the season opener when the Utes should completely dominate Southern Utah, but it'll be a game nonetheless. And we'll get to see the players and have more informed opinions and all that kind of stuff. But first, here's Steve Bartle.
How do you think Andy Ludwig is going to employ all this plethora of talent at tight end?
That's a great question, PK. It's definitely, it's not just a good problem. It's a great problem, a great situation that they have at that tight end room, in my opinion. Obviously it starts with Brant Keithy, and his versatility is key to, utilizing and maximizing the guys in that room, right? So just, his ability to play, kind of a hybrid receiver type of role allows you to get on another tight end, maybe even two tight ends, maybe even three tight ends. We might see four tight ends on the field, for stretches at a time this season. And I think it's the versatility that Utah has with this collection of guys that allows them to do this, or to do that sort of thing. And so I think Ludwig is going to have some things to get these guys on the field and to utilize their strengths. There's a good mixture of different strengths and unique qualities that each of these guys possess. There's depth, in terms of how they divvied up. They've got their U-back position, which is kind of their hybrid role, right? The Brant Keithy type. Landon King falls in under that category. Then you've got your traditional wide tight ends, the guys that are, your 6'5", 250-pounders, lining up next to the offensive tackle. You've got depth there with Carson Ryan, Dallin Bentley, Mickey Sugaturanga. Then you've got this unicorn, it sounds like, and Caleb Lohner, who's making the transition from basketball. And through 2 weeks, man, there's been a really positive buzz, about how he's looked, how he's translated onto the gridiron, because that is a difficult transition, right? Football is just a completely different game in terms of the physicality, and it sounds like he's handled it well. And so when you've got five tight ends that you feel good about, it sort of allows you to, find unique ways to get a Caleb Lohner type into the mix and raise your potential in that room. So, yeah, it'll be fun to see exactly how Ludwig puts it all together at times this season, but he'll definitely, use a lot of these guys throughout the course of the season.
My question with Lohner, the guy just looks like an athlete, right? If you ask Central Casting to send over an athlete, I need an athlete, they would send over Caleb Lohner. He just walks in a room and he just – But you got to get hit in football. It's a different deal, and he's been playing basketball. But the one thing I think he could do in the red zone, throw it up high, let him go get it in the end zone. It seems like with third and goal at the 5, he's made for that. Who matches up with him?
Yeah, nobody. There are not 6'8" safeties on the other side of the ball, right? And I think that is what makes this Lohner situation so unique, is that he has a very clearly identified role in which he can contribute. But, beyond that, he's a tremendous athlete. The thing about him is that he always had athleticism. On the hardwood, it's different because, he's got to defend wing type players, out on the perimeter, and that's not tough. But on the gridiron at 6'8", 235 pounds, and he's added size. He got here in May. He's put on 10, 15 pounds where he's now 245, 250. He fills out his shoulder pads, and I think that's going to be big for him. And I think there's a really good chance that he does more than just play that red zone target type of role. I think there's a chance that he expands just what he's able to bring to this team this season. And it's a credit to him and how hard he's worked this offseason. He wants this to work. He wants this to be a thing, and he's put in the work to make it happen so far.
I want to know, Steve, on the 21st day of September, who is going to take the first handoff at running back for the Utes in Stillwater, Oklahoma? When? The 21st day of September.
PK, I need more singing from you. Just when I'm in the, just next time you see me, please, just sing to me, man. That was beautiful. No, but I think, like this running back room is, man, it's. I know there's been a lot of worry and a lot of angst over the running back room because there isn't that clearly defined bell cow type of back. But you've got a Mekhi Bernard who's top dog in that room because he's the veteran. I think he's going to be the guy that starts these games. But exciting is you've got these two young guys in Mike Mitchell and Hunter Andrews who are bigger bodies. Both check in at around 220 pounds. They've got great athleticism. And so far through camp, it sounds like they've performed really well and have put themselves, squarely in the mix to be, big contributors this season. So, it's always interesting with that running back room because regardless of how it shakes out coming out of fall camp, there's certainly wiggle room for, a bell cow to emerge through the first couple of weeks of the season and to take control of that room. And I think Mitchell, I think Andrews, and potentially Jalen Glover could still be that guy. But I think, Bernard is the guy that, he's got all the trust in the world from the coaches. And I think that means a lot.
I'm wondering
for that running back room.
If Whittingham has lost his mind, taking an athletic player from defense and moving him to offense.
It's definitely a sign of the times, right? With the trend to the offensive side of the ball, even Whittingham is taken from the defense and putting, giving to the offense. I think that is as much a sign of the times as anything else.
One legitimate thing they had to do, they sent two safeties to the NFL, so they've got to figure that out. Is that figured out?
I think they have a very good idea. I think they're super close in knowing who the two starting safeties are. I think, they've got a group of four that are going to contribute, that are going to rotate, in and out of games this season or in and out of series and all that sort of thing. You've got Nate Ritchie, who I think, maybe it was known, maybe it wasn't known, but he had a back injury coming back from his mission, and that sort of limited him. Oh, sorry, you could probably hear Miles in the back there. But that limited him last season and impacted his level of play last year. And I think for him, he's gotten healthy. The back injury is behind him now, and that's freed him up and allowed him to play more instinctually. And he's definitely looking like the Nate Ritchie of 2020 that we became, that we were hoping to see last year. So, I think he's emerged as the guy at strong safety. And we've talked a lot about Teo Johnson at free safety, and I think he's still the odds-on favorite to win that job. He just has the qualities that you want in that center fielder type of safety. But a guy that I think is making this difficult is Alakai Gilman, the transfer from Stanford. Through 2 weeks of fall camp, he's definitely sounds like he's become more comfortable, in his role and in the scheme, and that too, similar to Richie, has allowed him to play a little bit more instinctually, and he's shown really well through the first 2 weeks of camp. So I think it's, and Jonathan Hall is still going to factor into the mix here as well. He's just a tremendous matchup against tight ends. So, Scalley's got a great problem on his hand with those four guys, but I think, it's going to come down to, Richie, Johnson, and Gilman for those two starting spots.
Utes have been making a little news in the recruiting, and it's interesting with the Utes as far as recruiting. They don't hit on everyone because nobody does, but it's like I don't really pay attention to the recruiting as much because I just figure they've been doing this for years, and you get guys come into the program that don't get much buzz. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't, but yet they turn out to be outstanding players. So I feel that the machine is going to hum along, but it does look like there is a little bit of an uptick as far as that goes in the star ranking for whatever that means. Speak to that and tell us how that's going.
Yeah, I think Utah's definitely benefited from their rise in success, on the field and how that's translated on the recruiting trail. I think, the encouraging thing here is the staff. They've been at it now, 12, 13 years at the Power 5 program. And a lot of these guys, a lot of these coaches and staff members, in the personnel department have been there for a handful of years too. And they know what they're looking for. They know, what works here at Utah because, they do look for certain personality qualities and certain mental qualities because, under Kyle Whittingham, under Morgan Scalley, this is you've got to be mentally tough. They're going to push you harder than some programs. And so, identifying that, on the recruiting trail, and you do that through talking to players and talking to coaches and as many people as you can that know the players and recruits well. And so that is a big factor in their success and why they're so good, in regards to their player development is, it starts on the recruiting trail and identifying the guys that fit the mold, in terms of what they look for on the field and what they look for, in terms of their mental makeup. So that is, a big key in this. And it helps when you have success on the field, when you go to conference championship games, when you go to the Rose Bowl, it has an impact on your ability to recruit those higher profile players. And now with NIL and that becoming a factor, you've seen it across college football in the fact that, Alabama and Georgia aren't just stockpiling their classes full of 5-star and 4-star kids anymore. They still are, but not to the extent that they were, pre-NIL and all this. You're seeing, programs like a Missouri and like, other programs of Missouri's caliber. I'm blanking on other programs comparable. Texas Tech, had a 5-star receiver last year that committed to them over Ohio State. You're seeing these other programs because NIL is such a factor. They're able to bring in a 5-star talent that maybe before NIL they haven't had much success with, and I think that is something that can benefit Utah this year as well. So. Last week they picked up 2 commits, and Aaron Dunn, who's a 4-star offensive tackle and committed to Utah over Oregon and USC, and then Nathan Tillman, who committed over Texas and TCU. Those are 4 programs that you would love to continue to get recruiting wins over. And so, Utah, like I said, they've done a good job, on the recruiting trail of identifying guys that work there and just have that thing, going right now.
Steve, we do not appreciate you winding up PK with the music stuff and then leaving. Yak and I are here hour after hour. You just get to drop in, wind him up.
Oh, my love for Steve is true.
The only thing I did appreciate is that you did welcome him coming over to the desk when you're sitting, a.k.a. slouching. And by the way, if you don't know Steve, gold medal sloucher. I'm going to take less.
That's my game.
I love to slouch. I've been yelled at it my whole life by multiple people. When I saw you, I thought there's a kindred spirit right there. That's a big time slouch.
Slouch, let it all out.
What have I done?
That's exactly what I was trying to say, Steve. I was trying to say it nicer.
Unleash the beast is what he's done.
That is actually what he's done, yes. All right. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, fellas.
When we come back, the Utah Jazz add Patty Mills. Why is a team that's going young want a guy in his mid-30s? That's next. Stay with us. Good morning. DJ and PK proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. Well, the news broke during yesterday's show. Patty Mills is going to join the Utah Jazz. 1-year deal, $3.3 million. Why does a team with so many guys in their first 2-3 years in the league, why do they want a guy in the mid-30s? PK and I talking about that right here on The Zone.
We found out the Jazz signed Patty Mills, 1 year, $3.3 million. Longtime San Antonio Spur. He's been bouncing around a couple years in Brooklyn and less than a couple dozen games in Atlanta, less than a couple dozen games in Miami, and now to the Utah Jazz. Makes sense of it, PK. The veteran who's going to tell the young guys how it is.
I've got to go Nancy Kerrigan in this situation.
Why? Good drop, Yak. I'm glad you found it that quickly. That was like instantaneous.
Now, they have to get to a certain salary level, so maybe that's something. And they had a roster spot open.
They didn't want to bring in an eighth really young guy.
Interesting to see what they're like the last part. How long was that? 30 years ago now?
Yeah.
20?
No, it's 30. 30 years ago.
30. Crazy.
She still got the silver medal, didn't she?
I don't know. I saw I, Tonya, one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Just uncomfortable the whole time? Movies that make you uncomfortable should be good for you. I would think that's what you want from a movie.
Man, it was too dark, man. Oh, my gosh. Every time you turn around, it was vulgar and just nasty and depressing. It's like it was too much. We went with another couple, and we still, to this day, laugh about how crappy that movie was. Jeez. I mean, the folks, what's that gal's name, the Australian gal who did played Tanya, and then that other lady, the one you got the hots for, the tall gal, Allison, played the mom. They did great. I'm not a movie critic. They did great in their roles. Who's the gal who played the
Margot Robbie?
Yeah. She's in the Wolf of Wall Street there. Yeah, and but it was just so depressing from start to finish, man. I need some kind of release, and I didn't get it. But the
now back to the Utah Jazz.
It's an Australian, so they signed an Australian.
Yeah,
so
okay, there it is. There's a connection. Good. Why?
I'm trying to find out, why this was a move that they felt that they need to make. And I don't know that I got an answer.
Veteran, all I can think is veteran leader will tell the young guys, reinforce the messages the coach gets. So when you guys tune in out, coach, the guy with the championship ring over here, maybe rings, plural, I don't know. I might be cheating him out of one. I think he has one. No, he's got more than one probably. And he'll tell him how it is. I know you think that's a cliche and overblown, but what else is it? I mean, it's...
Well, I think it's clearly you're overlooking exactly what it is. And do you want to know exactly what it is?
He was in San Antonio when Will was there, and they bonded and they trust each other.
No.
Oh.
It's big game hunting.
How so?
I was going to say Joe Ingles put a good word in for Salt Lake City. Who knows?
They got themselves a koala. They went big game hunting.
Koala.
Got themselves a kookaburra.
Okay, bring the Australian jokes on now. Let's go.
He comes
get the
from a land
didgeridoo
down
out.
under.
The didgeridoo.
I don't know. Maybe he can teach him over there at the where they get the meals how to make a Vegemite sandwich.
Yeah. He just turned 36. He's on a one-year deal. This is a team that's a long way away.
Maybe a Foster a day can help keep the doctor away. I would think that they would. That I guess maybe you got to take an offer. If I'm Mills and I got an offer to play in the NBA and it's guaranteed, I take it.
Yeah, he's got 3.3 million reasons to make this decision.
Yeah. But you would think at his stage he'd want to be on a winner, a contender.
Well, it's August 14th. Maybe the contenders aren't calling.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So he's got this opportunity. It's in the bank, literally and figuratively. Take it. So I can see where he's going. If somebody like, say, the Knicks off the top of my head. Knicks have an opportunity to contend, at least minimally contend this coming year. But a team like the Knicks weren't showing interest. So he has to take what's available to him. I get that. I guess maybe to push. Maybe, Locke has told us about, and I think he knows what he's talking about, when he says that they're really cognizant of not just handing out minutes just because you're young and we're in a rebuild, that's not a good enough reason to hand out minutes. Minutes must be earned. And so now you got somebody who's going to push George and Collier and Sexton to a degree, I guess. They're awfully small at the guard line there to make sure that they're competing, because Mills is going to come in and compete at the minimum, right? This guy's been around the block. He's literally played basketball all over the world, and he knows about competing. His skill set may not be someone that demands 30 minutes a game, but he's got to know about competing, and so he can push these guys. And I don't discount the opportunity to teach a little bit, but I just wonder if that's what the player is interested in. You know, we have the famous Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. I'm not here to teach you. It didn't look like Tom Brady was interested in teaching guys.
Right. And I would agree with that. The only thing I would say is they were there and established, and Mills is now at the point that he's bouncing around the league. I mean, he left San Antonio, so that's 4 years ago, and he's played for 3 teams. This would be his 4th team in 5 years. Maybe it's a little different. There aren't that many teams calling, and this team called, and here's what they want. Okay, I can do that. As opposed to, hey, I've been the Green Bay Packers quarterback for 15 years, and I'm planning on being here on 20, and you're going to try to push me out at 16. Forget about it.
Yeah, probably a little harsher language, but I get your point. Yeah, okay, I can buy all that. It all makes sense, logic to that, but still thinking that he's coming in to compete. And is it a 1-year deal? Did you see that?
1 year, $3.3 million.
All right. Well,
what was reported.
Who's to say that he doesn't want to play next year too? And so by playing well this year, gives an opportunity to play next year. So the point I'm making there is that he's not looking to be old guy, sage, imparting wisdom, Wizard of Oz type thing here. He's in here. He's coming in here with the opportunity in his mind to play. The position is open. No one has a lock on anything outside of marketing, right? Is anybody guaranteed that they're going to be playing if they're available and dressed out in uniform that day? I don't think so. I think the only guy is marketing, and he's done that because he's proven it. They're not giving him anything that he hasn't earned already. See what I'm saying there? Same type of philosophy.
So he can push, he can earn some minutes, and he can pass along the tricks of the trade to the young guy, and hopefully it works out. And there's trust because he and Will were in San Antonio together. And he knows the deal, and he's been explained it. And let's just assume that the young guys play great and there aren't a lot of minutes for him. He won't be causing trouble down at the end of the bench. Because ideally, the guys do earn the time. They do play well. You know, to Locke's point, it's not given to them just because, but they're literally out there possession after possession, earning the next possession. I'm not going to sub you out. You're playing well.
Right. That's where, to me, that's where the alignment would go when we're trying to figure out the logic behind it, is that he's going to push. It's up to these other dudes to learn. You know, you can't force somebody. He can come in and be a great mentor, but if somebody over here isn't interested in any of that, then
it doesn't go anywhere.
Who cares about the mentor?
It doesn't go anywhere.
Right. So he can do that, and I don't even think he needs to do it talking. You know, he can just do it by showing, which in a large way is a great way to learn. But the other guy has to be receptive on that. And if I'm Mills, I've got no problem with him coming in here. They'll start to gather in town here in the next couple of weeks as they prepare for camp. To dudes, man, I want that job. In fact, I hope he does that. I would rather have him think along the lines is, I want that job. Our job as players is to win games. If management wants to tank, that's their job, and they do it. But the player, nothing is guaranteed. You talk about going back to Stockton. his big thing is, well, man, how am I going to make it in this league? Now, obviously, he makes it to the highest level, right? But in the early days, he was thinking, I got to find a way to stay in this league. He didn't even realize probably how good he was. I'm not comparing any of these guys to what John accomplished by any stretch. I'm talking about the mindset. And so I got to look at, if I'm Collier, just using him as the most recent example, that's another guy coming in to take away my minutes, to take away my money. I'm looking at him as, I got to be better than him. And we always hear, a sharpening iron, blah, 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 all that stuff. Okay, so that's maybe what it's about. Just go ahead, son. We'll give anybody who deserves the minutes. It's that wide open, except for one player. And he's not going to go into a funk. Markkanen is going to be who he is, right? He's proven that. But everybody else, whether you're Collins or you're Filipowski, a vet versus a early second-round pick, it's wide open. You're all coming in here basically at an equal starting point. I don't know that you put Clarkson in that, but you get the point of what I'm trying to make, I think, here. So let's see what happens. That's I want Mills's mindset to think, I got minutes here. I came to this place to help this team and this organization learn how to win. And the best way to do it is by me playing as well as I can and forcing those other guys to sink or swim. That's what I think about it.
When we come back, former Ute quarterback Frank Dolce joins the show. Stay with us.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined once again by Frank Dolce, former Utah quarterback. Frank, good morning.
Good morning. Man, you sound a lot better this week.
I am better this week.
Yeah, you sounded like you had that deep, husky voice a couple weeks ago when we spoke. You sound like you're back on top of your game.
Well, such as it is.
Yeah, you got it.
The Utes have named a second-string quarterback. It's a guy who's gone to practice and been through there and worn the pads, and the starter gets to do most of the work, and the backup gets to do a little bit, and the third-string guy is somewhere around here. Where is he? Is he down at the other end of the field? I haven't seen that guy in weeks. How important is it to be the number two quarterback, and how much is that going to help matter going forward, and how much is everything at quarterback is chaos all the time, so it doesn't really matter?
Yeah. I don't know that there's I don't know that there's a lot of chaos around that position group this year. It was chaotic a year ago, for sure, for all of the weird circumstances we've talked about. But it seems fairly settled at this point. And so Cam Rising up top, and then you just have to find the guy that's the most reasonable to pick up the pieces if Cam goes down, which in his history that's been the case. It's not unlikely that he won't finish the season. So in some capacity. So I think this year's quarterback group is about finding the second, third guy that can replicate as much as possible the things that Cam does really well without the offense having a misstep or having to change things drastically. So I feel like that's what they tried to do with Isaac Wilson in that backup role. He's super talented. I watched him a lot when he was at Corner Canyon. He has really good tools. I think the big thing about Isaac, he's very athletic. I think the big thing about Isaac is he going to be able to, put on enough weight to kind of be more durable at the next level? Is he going to be able to manage the speed of the game? Because that is significant, that change. And how efficient is he with the football? I think he had the luxury of taking some chances when he was at Corner Canyon because he was kind of surrounded by, all of the best offensive players and really good defensive players, and he could get away with stuff sometimes. I think his team is just better than everybody else. How will he manage that transition and making sure he's really efficient with the football?
In today's world, there's so much hype with these quarterbacks, right? Because social media's out there, games are on television, and if not TV, they're streamed. So if a kid is playing in Utah, coaches in Texas can literally watch him play game night as they're sitting in hotels preparing for their game on Saturday. And you hear about quarterbacks all across the country. And we've talked about these high school kids, how they come in. You take a kid like this Heward kid, right? He's up in Seattle. His uncle and dad work big-time quarterbacks for University of Washington. We see the name. Now it doesn't work for him. They bring in Penix. He goes down to Cal Poly. Now he's on his third school. And you wonder, he's right now anyway, he's getting beat out by a freshman who's been in the program a few months. Obviously, Heward hasn't been in that long himself, but he's older. You'd think that on paper anyway it'd be better. I was just wondering, in your day, was there so many misses on quarterbacks? Because it seems like half of them, with all these 4- and 5-star rankings, never really pan out, and they move around from multiple schools.
We've seen that within the state several times in the past several years with the two largest programs in the state for sure. And don't discount those things happening elsewhere at Weber State and Utah State as well. It's just a really difficult position to nail down. And there's so many other things that go into it outside of just athletic ability that determine whether or not a guy is going to be really good. And not the least of which is if he lands in the right system. I mean, that's a huge deal. So, I mean, let's just take Cam Rising, for example. Is Cam Rising a great college quarterback? Yeah, I think he's a great college quarterback. Is Cam Rising a great college quarterback at pick any other program? Is he a great college quarterback at Fresno State? I don't know, maybe. That seems like a pretty good system. Is he a great college quarterback at Colorado? I don't know. Cam Rising landed in a system that I think fits his talents and abilities extremely well. So the challenge of trying to find the right quarterback with all of the talent and a smart guy and cool under pressure, and then implementing the right system to fit his particular talents. I mean, I just think that's a really difficult thing to do, and there's not enough technology and whatever else there is out there to determine from the beginning which guy is going to be really good in which situation. By the way, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't think I know Isaac was named number 2. I would be surprised if that backup quarterback role is settled at this point. I think that's going to be an ongoing competition at least throughout the preseason and maybe throughout the season.
But doesn't that just become his to lose, though? Because you can't really compete because the third or fourth guys, they're not going to get a chance to really show what they can do. Now, if the number 2 guy's over there throwing interceptions, or if the number 2 guy gets hurt somehow, then obviously we could have a new number 2 guy. Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for that. But I also think Utah has a little bit of opportunity because we already know, first of all, you don't want to – you have to be a little bit careful with Cam. Like you're trying to keep that guy healthy throughout a football season. And so I don't know if you're going to necessarily limit practice reps, but you might be more limited in practice. He's certainly going to be, all non-contact, that could give an opportunity for a second and a third team guy to get a few more reps in practice. And because you know what you have up front, why not take the opportunity, especially in practice, to really determine which guy is more aligned with the team, with the play calling, with the offense, with the system right now. So I guess you could say that it's Isaac's spot to lose at this point. I don't know if that's exactly true. I think that Utah is going to be more of a race as we continue forward for the guy behind Cam Rising.
How much do you think is a factor based on spring that the one kid was there and the other kid wasn't?
Yeah, it's huge. You know, I think that's really big. Familiarity with the offense, with the play calling, with the structure, comfort. I mean, I think that Ewart had a really difficult task coming in as late as he did, and then trying to find himself in the position to be competitive for the second spot. He certainly has game experience. That's huge. He's athletic. He has a great pedigree. I mean, he has a lot of the really good stuff, but knowledge of the system, familiarity with the players and the play calling, that's hard to overcome in this short period of time. So I think you're exactly right. Spring ball for Isaac was enormous.
The number 2 quarterback really matters this season. If we forget the future this season, if Cam can't go, are they playing a team they can beat with their backup quarterback? Last year, obviously, they didn't Cam at all. They found a way to win 8 games, and it was really clear-cut. When they played the teams that were ranked, when they played the teams that won 10 games, they couldn't get it done. They needed Cam. Maybe he wouldn't have been enough, but they certainly weren't doing it without him. So this year, Oklahoma State and Arizona, I'd look at those right away. But how good are these other quarterbacks? Can one of them step in, and it looks like, Wilson gets the first shot, I guess, to beat a TCU or to win a rivalry game when there's a ton of emotion, or to go to UCF and win on a short week, traveling to the East Coast and playing on a Friday? Are any of these guys good enough to pull that off?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, are they good enough? Yeah, I think there's plenty of talent in the quarterback room. And, I think you could go three guys down in the quarterback room and say, hey, there's plenty of talent. I mean, behind Cam, plenty of talent to win a bunch of football games. The separating factor is Cam Rising has demonstrated the ability to do that all those things you described, to be successful under very difficult circumstances in a rivalry game, in an intense fourth quarter, at the end of the game, as time is expiring. He's shown the ability to make plays however they need to be made. So that's one of those factors we were talking about earlier, is you can watch all the film, you can see how fast a guy runs, how far he throws the ball, the velocity, how it comes off of his hand. All of those things are amazing until there's 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, you're down by a score, and you're on your own 30-yard line. Do you have the guy at that quarterback position that can take the team down the field and score? So Cam Rising, that's the guy. You have that guy. The next guy up, we just don't know until you get him underneath those circumstances. And so that's the other difficulty of finding the right backup is you don't have an opportunity really to put him under those circumstances in a football game, especially early in the football season. So you just do your best to determine which guy is going to not falter under pressure. I think there's plenty of talent with all of the guys behind Cam. I think all of those guys can win football games for Utah. Can they win them in the most difficult of situations? You just don't know until they're under the lights and facing those situations.
How about with BYU? They got the two quarterbacks going neck and neck here, and A-Rod and Kalani come out this week and say, hey, we are not under any deadline. We'll just continue to see how it goes. Now, the reality is they are on a deadline. It's just they don't want to be pressed in the immediate future or the immediacy right now. But obviously they do have some form of a deadline. Are you comfortable letting it play out maybe another week, 10 days type of thing?
I've been in that situation where the coach is taking it down to the wire and then selects a guy and then you're off and running. And I'm not a huge fan of that personally, to take your team all the way up to, game time decision sort of thing. And then you put your starter. And I guess I would be surprised if that is actually going to be the case. A guy typically sets himself apart, and a team will recognize that. And even without a starter being named, that occurs sometimes in your fall camp. I'm kind of hoping that BYU goes with the two quarterback system, because that never works. We'll see if they roll into the football season with that scenario. But no, I am much more aligned with let's find a guy as early as we can. Let's put him under those pressure situations in practice as much as we can and determine if he's going to be the guy. And then if he's faltering in that area, then you have some time to pivot and say, well, look, we're going to make the move this way. And maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they've already determined that internally, and they're working through those scenarios internally without telling everybody what they're doing.
I think there's always what they say and what they mean.
Yeah.
And there's certain things you just can't say in public, and we all, even the media, we want them said, but we just have to recognize, if it were me standing over there, I wouldn't say it either. So let's be realistic. So they could be keeping the competition going, trying to put pressure on the guy, and they may have a pretty good idea who it's going to be, but trying to put more pressure on him and see if he reacts. They could be keeping this going to keep them both involved, because they plan to run the quarterback, and they think there's a high probability both these guys are going to start. And one guy may start 6 games, and the other guy may start 6 games, and end up splitting them just based on health. They could be doing this for another reason that doesn't come to mind right away, but those are two we've seen. Oh, to keep somebody from transferring, right? I don't think that would happen, but that is why coaches have extended quarterback competitions at other schools in the past. Maybe that's a factor here. And maybe there is still a fourth reason I haven't thought of, but I've seen the other three. Do any of those strike you as more or less valuable, or is it just killing time in August?
Well, I think the thought about the transfer is really interesting, because whoever thought that was going to be a thing several years ago, that you had to hold open competitions through fall camp. You couldn't name starters because you thought, well, if I name this guy, the other guy is just going to leave, and we need that guy. So that's interesting. I don't think that's happening in this situation, but
I don't either.
That certainly happens throughout the country. I mean, there could legitimately be, and I'm sure there is, a battle for that position, and there could legitimately be some question about who is going to be number one and who is going to be number two. And I would say I'm most aligned with your theory that these are both guys that they want to see play in some capacity throughout the football season. And maybe that's a starter and a guy who has a set of, a package that he's going to run periodically throughout football games, and not necessarily, a split time quarterback, which is a disaster, but a guy who's the starter, and then you have Tim Tebow come in, in third short, fourth and short, goal line situations, and runs that particular package. So I could see that as the scenario that's unfolding or likely unfolding down in Provo right now.
Halle Berry turns 58. Is there a present you'd like to give her?
All of my gratitude for the amazing work she's done in the film industry.
And you have a lot of gratitude.
A lot of gratitude. Well, she's given a lot. I mean, shouldn't we all
Yes.
have a lot of gratitude for that?
Catwoman, I believe, right?
Hey, when do you turn 58?
Soon, very soon.
In my case, a while ago.
Hey, I'm also grateful for you, just so you know.
Frank, it did occur to me that at the start of this, you were saying I sounded like I was on my game. I realized the last time we talked to you, you were shooting a 65, I think. I think you were 7 under 65 that day, playing the round of your life. And then I heard a siren in the background today. I'm thinking you're not at the course. I thought you were going to golf during all of these.
Different kind of shooting. Okay. It was a different kind of shooting today. Yeah.
There you go.
No, I haven't made it. I haven't quite made it to the course today. But since that high on the course a couple of weeks ago, when we've spoken, you know, I feel like my game has gone right in the tank, and I can't figure it out. I don't know what's happened. So I'm working hard to try and get that game back to where it needs to be before we run out of summer.
There you go. All right, Frank. Well, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for joining us, and let us know how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I will keep you apprised on a weekly basis where the game is.
When we return, what is trending? The headlines are next.